Hello, everybody. Welcome to the speech and debate class. And believe it or not, this is week 7, lesson number 7. Now, last week, there was not a posting for the class video because there were no classes last week. However, this week, there are some things you should have done. Remember, every week you need to do the listening. Sorry, every week you need to do the reading. I beg your pardon. You need to do the reading, and you should do 2 reading logs each week. That's one thing you should do every week. And last week was a holiday, but you should have finished 2 and 2 for this week. So you should have finished reading logs number 9, 10, 11, and 12. That's what you should have finished for today. So how did it go? I hope you managed to finish those. Well, let's go on then to what you need to do for next week is 2 more. Let me share the screen with you. One moment, please. Just get rid of that a second. Get rid of that. Sorry about that. Right. So this is the reading logs. So you should have finished number 9. You should have finished number 9, number 10, number 11, and number 12. That was because you had 2 weeks in which to do this. So by next week, you should finish number 13 and number 14 by next week. Now, it's perfectly fine to use the Breaking News English website because those stories are not so long, so it shouldn't take you too long to read one. I recommend reading level 4, 5, or 6. Remember, you have to try to write about the story, what the story is about, in your own words as much as you can. And then your opinion. What did you think about that story? The information in the story. You should write an opinion. Then you should choose at least 5 words or phrases. It can be more than 1 word. When you're looking at the vocabulary, check the word you want to look at and the words near it, because sometimes words work together better. And you should do a bit of vocabulary work too. So why are we doing this? Well, this is an ongoing thing whereby you can practice your reading and building your vocabulary. You will hand this in at the end of, you'll hand this in December. So there will be a place, and I'll explain exactly when you need to upload all your reading logs. Anyway, for next week, you should do reading logs number 13 and number 14, please. Good luck. Now, this lesson is supposed to be 100 minutes long, and the class video is never 100 minutes. So when the class video stops, perhaps the first thing you can do is your reading logs. Because I know some students say, oh, I have too much to do. But don't forget, these video class lessons are about 30 minutes long, sometimes shorter, sometimes a little longer. Right, let's go back then to the print we are studying. So let me share the screen with you. In just one moment, please. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong one. Just one second, please. Okay, so we are studying this, Japanese work ethics. Now, there's quite a lot on this print to study and a lot of ideas to think about, and we are taking our time. We'll be doing a little bit more study from it today. So let's take a look. Now, we've covered part 1, and I've given you the answers to part 1, and you should have written your answers on an answer sheet. We've covered part 3 and discussed 4. We did the answers to 5. We did the answers to 6. If you don't know what those answers are, you need to go back and watch the previous class videos. We also talked about part 7, and we did part 8, which is on page 3. We'll come back to that later on. So part 8, we will come back to that later. But now we're on to page 3, part 9. This is where we are now. And page 3, part 9 is a listening practice. Let me zoom in a little. So this is page 3, part 9. And if you look at today's lesson, if you go to the website, there is a link for this listening. And in the listening, you're going to listen to a man called Mark. Let's zoom in a little bit more. You're going to listen to a man called Mark. He's from Canada. And he's been working in Tokyo. He works for the Intensa Corporation. His boss is Mr. Tanaka. So that's the boss of the company he's working. And you're going to listen to his conversation. So Mark is talking to his friend Yosuke. Now, what you need to do is, first of all, just read the questions A, B, C, D, E, and then take a look at page 4. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, and then on page 4, there's questions F and G. So it's on page 3 and 4, questions A, B, C, D, E, and F and G. First of all, just read those questions first of all. Check in a dictionary if there's anything a little bit difficult. Don't do the listening yet. Just read those questions. Let's read. Okay, could you understand the questions? Now, the next thing you need to do is to prepare a space. Maybe you can write your answers down in notes first of all, but let me share the screen with you. You need to also, on your answer sheet, you should have an answer sheet like this with your name, your student number, Tuesday lesson 3, Japanese work ethics. And we've gone over part 1, we've gone over part 5, and you should set your answers out like this. We've gone over part 6. And now we're on part 9, question A, B, and C. So you should set your answers out in an answer sheet, please. Microsoft Word or Pages is fine. If you'd like to, you can do the answers by just writing them down in a notebook to begin with, and then type them on to your answer sheet. When we finish this handout in a few weeks' time, maybe 2 more weeks, and we will have finished this handout. When we finish this handout, then you have to upload your total points in your answer sheet. But that's not just yet. That would be coming up. Okay, so let's take a look at this next part then. Take a look at the questions in part 9. A, B, C, D, and so on. It's on page 3 and page 4. Take a look at those questions in part 9. Go to the URL link, which is on the Meiji website, and listen to that right now and see if you can catch the answers. So let's listen and let's write your answers down. Let's try. Now I'll check the answers to this part 9 next week. So make sure you finish it. What I'd like you to do again is have one more listen. Try to listen for those details. What is going on in this conversation? Let's listen again. How did you get on? I think this is an interesting story. Mark is working for the Intensa Corporation. He's talking to his friend. His boss is Mr. Tanaka. There seems to be a big problem at work. Well, what is that problem at work? In a nutshell, the problem is Mark doesn't want to go to any drinking parties or any restaurants after work. He does not want to do that. But It seems to be part of Japanese culture with this company that maybe once every week or every 2 weeks, they all meet after work and there's lots of drinking, possibly eating of food. This still happens today. But Mark from Canada says, no, I don't want to do that. And part of the reason he's not interested is because it's, he doesn't drink. He does not drink alcohol. And the other thing is that he thinks that he works hard and he doesn't need to go to drinking parties or to restaurants with his fellow workers. So he doesn't think he needs to do that. But his friend Yosuke says, oh, well, you really should. And the boss, Mr. Tanaka, is wondering why he doesn't see him at the drinking parties. And it's not just drinking. Usually these kind of things are, they go to a restaurant, they have something to drink and eat. And it's usually the workers that are working together in a team, in a department, maybe. And he's saying he just doesn't want to do this whatsoever. Now, this to me seems to be a clash of culture. Now, I come from Britain, and in my country, it's not common for company workers to go out with their bosses. It's not really a common thing. It's also not common that groups of workers in a department meet after work in to drink and talk over work. That's not common either. However, in my country, workers who work together often form friendships, so they might hang out together. They might go and see, say, a baseball game, or they might indeed go to a pub, because friendships are made at work. In fact, sometimes people even get married from people they meet at work. So it's not unknown in my country for people to meet after work and have a drink, quite common, but not in the way they do in Japan, where it's expected. And maybe the boss is present too. The boss has said, we're all going for a drink on Friday, you all must come. And in the Japanese way of doing things, everybody feels they must do this. And that's where Mark has the problem. He doesn't drink and he wants to have his own free time. That seems to be the problem in this story. So we have, he doesn't want to do it, and the Japanese side say you should do it. So we have a problem. Let's take a look at the print then. And let me show you the print again. Just one moment, please. So now we are on page, let me just zoom out a little. Now we are on page 4, part 10. And here it says, read the following. Which one do you agree with? So read A, read B, read C, and read D. What do you think of A, B, C, and D? So first of all, just read them. And then what do you think of A? What do you think of B? What do you think of C and D? Which one do you think is best? Now, we should use this for speaking practice. And so you should find somebody to speak to express your opinion. So take a look at part 10. If you can't find anybody to speak to, then just speak by using your voice. Part 10, read through the questions. What do they mean? And which one do you think is the best idea from part 10? Let's try. How did you get on? Well, I'm going to give you some of my ideas. I think each of these is pretty interesting. So if you look at A, well, I sort of agree with this, that you shouldn't be forced to do something if you don't want to do it. But Japan doesn't really work like this. And actually, a lot of countries don't work like this either. Things are expected of you, and you have an obligation to do them. So I'm not so sure if you can do this. B, well, that's the point, isn't it? It is part of Japanese culture that some companies regularly have after work drinking sessions. Usually it's drinking and eating. And actually, as you listened in the story, there's a lot of good things that happen here because the workers can relax around the boss. Everybody drinks a little bit. Maybe some of them even get a little bit drunk. And people speak their minds more openly than they might do in the office. So one argument for the drinking parties is it's a really good way of people to relax together, get to know each other well, and speak more freely than they might do in the office. So that's perhaps what's going on there. So I can see the good point of that. Now you'll notice in C it says get ahead. Repeat after me, get ahead. When you get ahead in your job, it means you're doing very well in your job. Maybe you're getting more promotion, better pay, more responsibilities. To get ahead. Now, some people say to get ahead in life, you should work hard. And that's what Mark is saying. He says, well, I'll be fine. I'll get ahead. That means he can do well just by being a good engineer and working hard. Well, I'm not so sure that's true, even not just Japan, in any other country. Because someone could be working for a company and working really hard, but if they don't mix well with other workers, if they don't get along with other people, then how can they get ahead? One way of getting along with people in Japan is meeting them after work and going to drinking parties. Oh, so question D. Well, he could be the best engineer he can be, and he won't get ahead in Japan. But that's also true in other countries. It doesn't just happen in Japan, because there's more to getting ahead than just being good at something or good at your job. You've got to have good communication skills. You've got to get along with other people. So you could be really good at your job, but if you can't get along with other people and you cause trouble, well, that's never going to work. So I'm not sure I agree with A, B, C, or D. In fact, I'm not sure the answer is A, B, C, or D. And that brings us to the next point. So let's take a look at the print. And let's take a look at more discussion. And A, what would you advise Mark to do? And B, what would you do if you were in his situation? So we have question A and question B in part 11. Now, what you should do is try to find someone to talk to discuss those questions. And it should take you about 5 minutes to talk about those. If not, then you can speak your idea by yourself, but use your voice. Let's talk then about 11A and 11B. Let's talk. How did you get on? Well, if I look at these questions, I think I can take A and B together. Now, if you remember from listening to the story is really about Mark doesn't go to the drinking parties. His boss thinks he should. And it's part of Japanese culture. Now, Yosuke says to Mark, Yosuke, his friend, of course, says to Mark, well, you know, we're worried about you and how you're getting along at the company. And then he says to Mark, we gave you this job because you speak Japanese and you understand how we do things. So I'm a little surprised that Mark, who speaks Japanese and understands Japanese culture, doesn't go to these drinking parties because it's part of Japanese company culture. So I'm a little surprised by him. So what I'm saying is that maybe there could be a compromise. Perhaps Mark should go to some of the drinking parties. And when he goes, he doesn't have to drink alcohol. He doesn't have to have beer, shochu, nihonshu. He could say, sumimasen, orange juice, or he could have mugicha. He could drink something else, couldn't he? So my advice to Mark, and probably what I would do in Mark's situation, if I didn't really like going to these things and I didn't drink alcohol, if I were Mark, I would go sometimes, maybe not to all of them, but sometimes go to them. but don't drink the alcohol. And of course, after he's gone and shown his face and talked a little bit, if people are getting a bit noisy and a little bit drunk, sometimes happens, he could then leave. You could just say, oh, well, you'll excuse me now, I have to leave. And I think that would be fine. So that would be what I would advise Mark. What did you do? Okay. Now, as far as the print goes right now, then, by next week, just make sure you've finished page 3-4, part 9. I'm going to check the answers to page 3-4, part 9. Now, there is one more homework to do for next week, so I'm going to explain the homework. Let me share the screen with you again. Now, take a look at page 3, part 8. There are many questions here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Next week, I want you to choose one of these questions to write about. It's a little bit of writing practice. So I'd like you to choose a question to write about and try to write one paragraph of about 200 words. However, you can write more. Now, good luck with this. And also, it will be a good idea to research the topic a little bit too. So let me show you what this homework is by sharing the screen with you again. So just a moment, please. And let me just get up something, just 1 second, please. And so this is this speech and debate class writing assignment. So you can make a note of this. Basically, you have to choose one topic, maybe A or B or C or D, one topic, and you should try to write at least 200 words, and more is better. You can write 300 words if you want to. Also, if you can, try to do a little bit of research about your topic to find out some details to put in. You'll get better points if you've shown a bit of research. You can write more than one paragraph. There is a week to do this. So I suggest you choose a topic, find some things out about it, and then try to write your paragraph. Now, let's take a look at this. This is how you should set out you should write it in Microsoft Word, or you should write it in Pages. Your name, of course, Emmy Nakano, not Nakano Emmy. Your student number, Tuesday lesson 3. Writing assignment. And then you can write all of this part down, a paragraph from page 3, topic 8 of Japanese work ethics. And then, though, this is an example for D, but you could do A here. So according to what you choose, maybe you're going to write about A, or perhaps you want to write about B, or you want to write about C, or you want to write about D. This one is, in fact, writing about D. So this is how you should set out. Now, going back then, let's take a look. So you can write about A, and in that case, when you come to write down the dash conversation question, A is what you're going to write about. So you choose one of these to write about. Now, this student has chosen to write about D, and here's the start. So it says Japanese companies have a reputation of making their employees work long, arduous hours. Oh, there could be a new word there, arduous. You could look that up. Now you'll notice that it says, according to the BBC, and there's a number 1. In 2018, almost 50% of Japanese people only took half of their paid holidays. Oops. Holiday entitlement. While CNBC, and there's a little number 2, reports that Japan has some of the longest working hours in the world. Why do Japanese companies do this, and what problems does it cause? Now that's going to be a nice paragraph. Might even be longer than a paragraph because you can write more than one paragraph if you want to. And then at the end of the paragraph, you should, don't forget your word count. And also this time, I want you to include some references. What did you use to help you get your ideas for your writing to an answer in part 8 of Japanese work ethics? You can choose any of the questions. So it's page 3, part 8. Any of these to try to write about. Okay. So now you'll notice then that number 1 referred to the writer, what they wrote, and it was actually on a BBC website and the BBC website address. Number 2, that was the name of the writer and the year they wrote it, the title of what they wrote, and the website it was on. Now, I'm not too worried about the references as long as you can try to make the references you used. So this is how you set this out. Now you can pause the video and watch again if you need to. Don't forget the usual things apply when writing. So let's just take a look. The font I like to use is called Times New Roman. That just means the style of typing. Also, the size of typing I use is size 12. There's no need to have huge typing, huge letters, just size 12 is fine. Next is the spacing. I use spacing times 2. Don't know why it was on spacing times 3. It should be spacing times 2. So your spacing should be times 2. There's the spacing. You can also make that spacing 2 as well, actually. So the spacing is times 2. And because if you take a look, spacing times 1, the typing is very close together. That's not so good. So you want the spacing times 2. And then later on, you can go to the tools and go to the word count. Here there were 50 words, in fact. And so the computer can do the word count for you. Do not forget the word count. But new this time is your references, something you used to get some information to help you write in more detail. So to help you write, now you only one topic. Do you want to write about A, or do you want to write about B, or C, or E, or D even, or F, or G? So one of those. Okay. So we basically have come towards the end of the lesson today, the video lesson. For next week, you should finish reading logs 13 and 14. For next week, you should finish from Japanese work ethics, page 3 and 4, part 9, drinking workers. Before the end of next week, you should have completed writing about one topic from page 3, part 8, the conversation questions, writing about one topic there. Choose one. Now, my advice would be is to choose a topic to write about and start to find something. You don't have to read too many things, just 1 or 2 things to read about to give you some ideas. For example, one of the topics says about Japanese workers, when a woman gets to about 25, they expect her to have been married and they wanted to leave the company. Is that true these days? What do you think of that? Can you find out any information about that? Or is that an old idea now and doesn't really apply? So you might want to write about that question, for example. Okay, then. So reading logs 13 and 14, finish page 349, drinking workers, and 1 paragraph. That's what you need to do by next week. And you need to upload that paragraph before the end of the day. That's the only thing you need to upload. I'll go over the answers to 9 next week, and the reading logs you'll upload in December. Have a great week. See you for the class video next week. But for now, ijo, sayonara, sayonara, sayonara. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye.